So value, that's the lesson. Welcome to Cue the Mic.
Welcome to episode number 33, and I'm Randy Twyford, and that's Darren Worth, and glad to have you here.
Glad to have you here. Yeah. We, after our last episode, Randy, I got to tell you, people do actually listen to this podcast.
Really?
Because, when I was going through and talking about our problems with data analytics and struggling with counting and whatever, you would not believe all the computer guys that came out of the woodwork saying, this is easy. I can help you. Let's program something. I can help you.
Unbelievable that there's barbecue people that are computer people. That was always the thing. At barbecue contests. I'll never forget at Bruce Ring's what people do in their real life. And at Bruce Ring's contest, I'll never forget, there was a guy that came in, and that was in, what was that town in Missouri? Jefferson City. And guy came in this massive motorhome. And everybody was like, man, who's that guy? And of course, Bruce knew him. And it's like, wonder what he does. And, it's the old joke is, well, by God, what are you, a nuclear physicist? Well, this guy really was a nuclear physicist, and he traveled around the country and was a consultant. And remember that? That guy he was actually a nuclear physicist, and he traveled around and was a friend of Bruce's and came and cooked that barbecue contest. I'll never forget that. Never forget.
Yeah, we always talk about that, because when I explain the barbecue to people in the world, I said, it's this big melting pot, because you talk about, it's like, we got computer programmers. There's a ton of computer guys. I'm surprised how many computer guys there are, but there's CEOs of companies, but then there's, city sewer workers, and there's just all kinds from every different walk of life in there, because it's all just a hobby for people to get away. Now, there's very few restaurant owners in the barbecue competition circuit, because most of the time, if you own a barbecue restaurant, unless you've got any big size to you, it's hard to get away.
Exactly. And the nice thing of it is once you hit that barbecue playing field, everybody's even. It doesn't make any difference if you're the CEO of a big corporation, or like you said, if you're a city worker working on the streets, everybody's the same, and everybody treats everybody the same. And that's the nice thing about barbecue contests.
Right. So getting back to this conversation, so I'm getting emails back and forth from listeners, saying, and text messages and messenger messages and whatever, saying, hey, I think we can solve this problem for you. So one of those messages came from old Seth at Procrastinators, who we both know very well, and, been around for a long time. And, Seth, he's a high-end computer geek. I mean, he's one step away from NASA. So he's showed me a picture of his home office where he works, and he used to be like the head of IT security or cyber security for, I think, Jim Beam, and now he's a certifiable chief technology officer. I think he is, for a big insurance brokerage, and they build their own software and they do all this stuff. And he goes, I think we can use artificial intelligence. And I'm like,
really?
What? He goes, yeah. He says, send me this file. So we're going back and forth on the text. So I send him a file of this raw data. Now, this is a PDF. This isn't an Excel format. This is a PDF of the day on Wednesday spreadsheet showing each individual order. And he started writing not writing code. All he was doing was asking it questions. He's like, can you summarize this by menu item? And then it would blurt out a thing. And then he would say, let's fine tune this. And so we're going back and forth. And this just is a 5-minute conversation back and forth on Messenger. But he starts asking it very much detailed questions. So once he figured out how to ask the right questions, it started giving us the right answer.
Really?
Right? And I'm like, are you kidding me? So he sends me this screenshot and he goes, tell me, take menu item turkey and tell me each. I can't remember what he did, but he was writing through all this stuff. And all of a sudden, boop, pops up. Turkey, you need 2 gallons. You need 89 quarts. You need 72 whatever. And by the way, total, you need 68.5 gallons of turkey gravy. Now, I'm here to tell you, manually, that would have taken, just turkey gravy would have taken 30 minutes alone, with probably 3 mistakes. But this thing spit that out in a matter of minutes. So he was explaining to me that once you get this, and there's a name for it, but I call it a widget. But once you get this widget designed in, then, about how you want it and how you want it to analyze a certain report, then you can save that. And then you can just bring another report in, tell it the same thing, and it will come up with the different answers about this. And so you think about data analytics in the restaurant. We got a huge amount of data, right? I mean,
exactly.
POS, we got POS data. We have all this data, whether it's financial data or operational data, whatever. We have this huge amount of data that we need to compile. And the problem is we don't get time to do that. Nobody has time to do that. And nobody has time to hire a full-time financial analyst. So I'm looking at this thing, I'm going, wow. And my mind starts going, how do I download, my raw POS data for the day? And how many portions of brisket do I need on the average for every Tuesday? And how much mac and cheese do I need to prepare based upon the portions? Give it to me in gallons. How many do I need? So if you load all this past data in, it's smart enough to do this very quickly,
Really?
give you the data you need at your fingertips. And so it's like I've been constantly thinking time and time ever since I had this conversation with him. So he's like, well, yeah, it's just $20 a month. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, but you got to go. I've had the Chat GPT app. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that, Randy.
Yeah, I've seen it on your
if
phone.
you download, you can get a free app of Chat GPT. So it's free. And you can ask it questions. You can say, hey, write me the autobiography of Randy Twyford and Twyford Barbecue in Jacksonville, Illinois. And it'll print out a 5-page autobiography synopsis of you. And it will know everything about you. And so, and I played around with that a lot. It's kind of fun to play with, but never really a thing. Well, then we get into this data analytics. He goes, yeah, you gotta go to the GPT Plus, which is $20 a month. And I'm like, so I go to sign up. I'm all excited, and I'm on a wait list.
Really?
And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. Here I'm hot and bothered, ready to go.
Right.
Ready to go.
Right.
I'm ready to take the world by data analytics got it by the balls, and now I can't use it. And so old Seth says, well, let's try a different avenue. Let me try and invite you to a free 30-day thing. And by God, we went in the back door and I was able to get right in.
Should have known that Seth would be able to get it pulled off.
Yeah, he got it pulled off. But so super fun. I mean, I'm going in, I'm just playing around with this the other night, right? And it has some limitations because it'll only let you do so much firepower work before it cuts you off for a couple hours. And I'm not sure if that's the limitations of the computers or what's going on how new it is. And that's probably what they're limiting the users. But I'm just digging around into this thing, playing around. And there was a coloring book creator. I'm like, a coloring book creator? And so I pull it up and it says, design any coloring book page that you want. I said, so, Griffin likes to cook and he likes coloring books. So I said, can you design a cookbook page or a coloring book page? Coloring book page. They'd probably do a cookbook too if I ask it, but give me a coloring book page of me and my grandson cooking. And within 10 seconds, boop, here pops up a page of a guy and his grandson cooking. And I said, please make the grandson 2 years old. So it popped up. Here the grandson's now cooking on the floor or smaller, and it lowered the age of me, Grandpa, because they knew Grandpa, if it was 2 years old, the Grandpa was going to be. I said, give my grandson curly hair. Bloop, boop, here's curly hair. Here's a page with curly hair. So it had all this, and then I'm like, oh, look at this, Sherry. We're going to have fun with this. So I said, I'm going to upload a picture of Griffin and say, make this the image of my grandson. Well, that's where it wouldn't allow me to. I probably got to pay $40 a month to get to that, but you couldn't put the artificial intelligence. You couldn't put the actual photo in there, but it was crazy. I'm going to have Haley kind of probably design me a little, not a photo, but maybe a character of Griffin to see if it'll let me upload that. But this whole thing, this whole artificial intelligence, it's amazing and it's scary.
Why do you say it's scary?
Well, think about now you can do voiceovers. So I don't need you for this podcast, Randy. I'll just do a voiceover of somebody else with your lips moving. So now think about, we're in political season. I didn't know if you knew that or not.
No.
I know Marla watches Fox News every once in a while, but think about now, whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whoever the hell it is. Imagine somebody uploading a photo and just asking it, hey, have them make this statement. So then they make this statement that they didn't make, but then they could publish that statement and the world would believe it, right?
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
So it's almost, it's just crazy. And so I've kind of gotten into this whole podcast thing. I've never been a podcast listener, right? Matter of fact, our first episode that Emma and I did was the first podcast that I had ever listened to. And I'm like, I really don't see the value in this. Well, ever since then, I've always been out searching as I go on my morning walks or, just driving somewhere. I've always been a silence thinking guy. Well, now I've kind of turned into, I've got a few podcasts I listen to, and mostly restaurant related or chef related podcast. And, and I did listen to the Travis Kelce. I haven't listened to that one in a few weeks, but the Kelce brothers one, just because I like Taylor Swift. But I think we may have talked about that 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But so I listen to this podcast, right? So the newest one I've been listening to is David Chang.
Right. You said that.
Who David Chang?
Yeah.
I think we maybe talked about the Momofuku noodles and whatever.
Right.
So he was talking about AI because he says there's a thing out there called decision paralysis. And I'm like, decision paralysis. And so what decision paralysis is, hey, Sherry, what do you want to have for dinner? Oh, I don't care. Well, I don't care either. I don't care. Or you go out to eat. Where do you want to go out to eat? I don't care. I don't care. Right? You got the same thing in your house, right?
Exactly.
Or do you just take control?
No, it's the same thing. Guaranteed.
Right. So here's decision paralysis. And he was talking about when couples go out to eat, that you'll have 2 couples. Where do you want to eat? I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Everybody's I don't care. And he says AI will take care of that now. He says where he sees the world going is AI knows what Instagram photos you looked at and liked or commented on. AI knows everything about your Facebook profile and whatever. And I can tell, like for you and I, we like pork steaks, right? And if you go look at our social media, you're probably going to figure out we like barbecue and pork steaks.
Right.
And Momofuku noodles, right?
Right.
So artificial intelligence will soon tell us where we want to eat because it knows everything about everybody. It can write my autobiography. How could it not know what I want for dinner? And so
Good point.
he talked about it coming into restaurant data, and a customer comes in and they order a burger every time. But it's smart enough to know that, hey, they've had the burger last 4 times in a row. They probably want something different. What's one of their other favorite foods? So whether it suggests that to them in the ordering process, or it just puts them out front of with ads and social media and stuff ahead of time. So when they walk in, they know exactly what they want.
And what did he call that?
Decision paralysis.
Huh. Interesting.
And I think that was just so we talked a lot about that yesterday. So I had, and if you know me, I hate meetings, right? I'm not a meeting guy. And I think because I grew up in corporate America and we had meetings to talk about meetings, and you had the same thing, Randy, right?
Same deal. Yeah, meetings for meetings.
In the old paint world. You got to have meetings to talk about meetings and whatever, and nothing ever got accomplished.
Exactly.
Right? Nothing ever got solved in a meeting.
No.
Right? It was just a way to get together and whatever. So I've always been in the restaurant business. I've always been kind of a one-on-one guy, right? So if I've got an issue with this segment of the business, I'm talking to my GM or somebody in catering or whatever. I've just always done that. And I've never, ever been a staff meeting guy. Well, we got a lot going on, right? We had the big Thanksgiving massacre we talked about, which really wasn't that bad. It was actually really good. But we had the Thanksgiving massacre. We got Christmas around the corner. We got things happening in the restaurant and all kinds of different things. And I'm like, you know what? I probably need to sit down and just with my upper kind of management, need to sit down and have a meeting. And that wasn't Sherry upper management. She didn't get invited, right?
She's the upper management.
So yesterday I said, we're going to have this meeting at 9:15. And so we start at 9:15 and we start talking. I didn't really have an agenda. I started walking around the restaurant. I was in the banquet room, but I was like, okay, let's talk about when you walk in the back door. Let's talk about meat inventory, because that's the first thing you see is raw meat inventory. And let's talk about smoker and production issues, and then side dish production. And then let's move into catering and bakery and our front and our back line, to-go line, whatever. And we hit every segment of our business. And every segment, would take some time. And I thought maybe we'd have an hour-long meeting. At 4:00 yesterday afternoon, we left the meeting and we weren't even halfway through. Yeah.
Really?
4:00 in the afternoon, we sat down. And I tell you, I had the best day ever having that meeting, because I knew that I had the right team, right? Because we were going back and forth and challenging each other. And it was just truly amazing. And
that's great.
And I'm like, holy criminelli. And we've got a list of 50 million things. I mean, it was so, let me give you an example. We're sitting there talking about desserts, because we make our own desserts from scratch, right? We bake our own brownies. We don't make our own cookies, but we make our famous apple dumpling. We make our whatever. We make everything from scratch. Well, we were talking about different dessert ideas, because if you can sell a dessert, you can, mark up your ticket item. So up comes this Slim Chickens, which is a chicken chain here. I'm not sure if you got Slim Chickens down there or not, but Slim Chickens is gaining popularity. They're not as big as a Chick-fil-A or a Popeyes or something like that, but Slim Chickens is a thing. And so I know all the equipment guys that serve, it's a pretty new location, a couple years old. But anyway, I've talked to them and they said, the one thing that's different about Slim Chickens is Slim Chickens makes all their stuff from scratch. They make all their sauces from scratch in-house daily, which is really weird for a chain restaurant, but really good.
Right.
And to be honest, I went up, and when I heard that, this was about 6 months ago, I said, I'm going to go to Slim Chickens, because, we own a chicken place of our own. And I'm like, I'm going to see what the competition's like. And they're on the other edge of Ankeny. They're probably 20 minutes away from our chicken restaurant, but maybe 10 minutes. I don't know. But so I go up and I order the chicken sandwich. And I just go through the drive-through. Nobody knows me. I just order the chicken sandwich. That's all I get. And I get my chicken sandwich and my bun's burnt. My chicken is about a half-inch thick on one end of the bun. It barely covered the bun, but it was about a half-inch thick on one side and about a quarter inch, not even a quarter inch, eighth of an inch on one side. The one side's jerky and the one side's nice and juicy. The flavor's good, but overall, it's a C, right? It's a 3-star for me.
Right.
Whatever. So back to the meeting. We're talking about the meeting, and they're like, all the young kids are just in love with Slim Chickens. And I'm like, what's the deal? Maybe they had a bad day. Maybe I have to go try it again, which I need to. And they're like, oh, no, it's
Right.
the desserts in a jar. The desserts in a jar. Yeah. Oh, they're great. They're great. So while we're sitting there talking about this, my director of operations gets on DoorDash. We didn't even know he was doing it. Gets in DoorDash, orders dessert from the Slim Chickens, and has it delivered to the restaurant. And we're just talking about things, talking whatever. And all of a sudden, here walks in one of our front of the house managers with, hey, did you guys order DoorDash from Slim Chickens? David's like, yeah, I did. So we threw out a bunch of spoons, and there was these desserts, and they were in a pint jar. Now, it was a custom pint jar, glass jar. It was a glass jar with a lid, just like a ball jar, whatever. But it had Slim Chickens insignia into the glass. And so we're looking at this, and it's just like a layered dessert. So we had one that was like, it had whipped cream and it had Reese's peanut butter cups chopped up, and then it had cheesecake, like they had cooked this cheesecake and then chopped it up into like little, and it wasn't a very thick cheesecake, but they had chopped it into these like little 3/4 inch squares, threw some of them in, more whipped cream, more whatever, and they put the lid on the thing. And that's $7.99. And they did the same thing with a brownie dessert. They had whipped cream with chocolate chips on it, with some brownie in the middle, with more whipped cream. Hell, half the whole thing was damn whipped cream. But it was good. But it was $7.99 for a little dessert. And I was trying to get to the bottom of, what the hell is the deal? And they're like, oh, well, we can take this jar and we can take it home, put it in the fridge, and then every once in a while we'll take a bite out of it, and it might last 3 days. And that's value, right? So every time I want a little snack, it's value. And I'm willing to pay $7.99 for a jar that, unlike me, I'm like, So now my wheels are turning about, I'm going to put some desserts in a jar. I can make, and these were actually, I'm like, I wonder if these come in frozen, they just thaw them out. And so I instantly flip up the jar, and it's got today's date on it. I'm like, I think they made this fresh today. And then another one, they flip it up and goes, oh, this one's from yesterday. Now, they may have been frozen and taken out. I'm not sure whether they would do that or not. It might have been. And if it is, more power to them. If you can take something like that and just thaw it out and make a bunch of them instead of trying to make everything fresh every day with the rotation.
Right.
But it was crazy. So we start looking at jars. We got $1 in the jar, and we had less than $1 in the ingredients for $2. Would I sell that for $7.99, $6? Hell yeah, I would, because it's a high dollar dessert item.
I was going to say, you probably had it more in the jar and the lid and everything than you did in the dessert, than you would in the dessert.
But the value to the people that love this, the value, they thought the dessert was good, but I derived the value was, here's this jar. And I said, do you get to take the jar back and get a refund or whatever? Like, no, I just collect them, and then when I get too many of them, I throw them away, which means they're not just buying this every once in a while. They're buying this a lot. And so I've got my mind's starting to go, and I'm thinking, wow, if I could at lunch sell a $6.99 pork sandwich and a $6.99 jar of dessert, that's pretty damn profitable, because I'm not just capturing the value of a dessert of a $1.99 cookie that somebody's going to eat there. I'm actually getting them to buy something that they're going to enjoy over 2 or 3 days, but I get the revenue for that, right? So they're not going to stop and get 2 other candy bars. They're going to go back to that dessert. Now, I don't want to copy them exactly, but that's how my mind is thinking of, oh, wait a second. How do we get something that's special, that's homemade, that's really good, but give it in this convenience factor that people think there's a lot of value?
Well, and don't you think also, Darren, something like that, if somebody comes and gets it at lunch and then they take it back to the office and set it in the refrigerator, they take it back to the office and somebody goes, well, where did you get that? Well, I got that at Smokey D's. It's going to help in the selling of that add-on sales, from somebody else seeing it.
Well, and so, that's the first thing we went to is I said, I'm going to go get some jars. I'm going to go over to the farm store right around the block. I can buy jars for $11 a dozen, right?
Right.
I'll have 90 some cents in the jar. And they said, well, you going to put a sticker on it? And I'm like, okay. So instead of hand blowing custom jars, which I could do,
Sure.
We got online for $1. I can have somebody will make me plastic jars with my logo on it. Plastic,
okay,
not glass, plastic jars.
Okay.
With my logo on it. And I'm not sure if there's enough value in that plastic jar. Maybe there is. Maybe we got the same concept, right? The plastic jar versus a glass.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out, is the glass that important? Or is the plastic jar? But they'll do them for $1 a piece, 250 minimum. I'm like, 250 minimum? If I can't sell 250 of these damn things, then I
might as well not do it.
But it's a matter of getting something enough value that people are willing to pay for it because they know they're going to have multiple, whether it's multiple meals or whether it's multiple something out of it, right?
Right.
But the whole conversation became around value, right? And we're very value driven, right?
You have to be.
You have to be. You have to be. Because people are hurting now, right? So I listened to another podcast. I'm going to have to, I never know names of the damn things. But there's a guy out of Minneapolis. Let me see if I can find it here. He's a restaurant owner. I really can't find my way around podcast, but here it shows. I'll find it here. But there's this guy that owns a restaurant in Minneapolis, and his last name's Niver, something Niver, and he has a podcast called Never Neverland. Instead of Never Neverland, it's Niver, right. Never Neverland. And I just listened to a podcast of his this morning, and it was a 45-minute rant about people and the cost of the restaurant and whatever. And he's in a little different situation. So he's got sit-down restaurants, reservations required, whatever. And he was complaining because all this cost was going up, but he had 50-some seats, right? 48 seats, I think. And he said they had sold out reservations, right? They online, so they were turning people away. And half the people either didn't show up or didn't cancel the reservation, even after they sent them a text message the same day saying, we got you down for 7:00 tonight, you in? Half of them replied, yes. Yep, we're in, and then didn't show up.
Wow.
And half of them didn't even respond. And he's like, what do I do? I've turned down people all week long for a Friday night. but now all of a sudden my seats are half full because somebody decided they either wanted to go somewhere else or it wasn't that important to eat
So
there.
what's he
And he's
do?
like, do you know what he says, you do nothing, you struggle. And that was his kind of rant about the customer. And he tried to compare it to, if you make an appointment with your beautician, as I know you do, Randy,
Of
I
course.
just walk in, but if you make it, do you keep that appointment? Would you never
Sure you
just
do.
not show up? No, you'd keep that appointment because
No.
it's personal, right? You want something done.
Exactly.
Well, he said the dining segment has gotten so lazy about that it's not personal to them. So I'm going to book a reservation at 3 or 4 different restaurants tonight, and then in our decision paralysis, we'll figure out where we're going to eat, and we just won't show up for the other 3. Well, he's like, I reserved
And not worry
that
about
table,
canceling.
but I reserved that table for you, right? So that table is going to sit empty now. So if let's say it's a fancy restaurant, it's $50 a plate. 4 people at $50, that's $200 that he's not going to make in that segment. He also talked about segments. How you can't just go sit at a restaurant and expect to sit there all night long, because he had like 2 or 3 seatings. So he may have a 5 o'clock reservation, a 7 o'clock reservation, a 9 o'clock reservation. When you get there at 5, you can't sit there for 4 hours because you got to expect somebody's going to sit there at 7.
Correct.
Now, we don't have any of that problems because we're in order at the counter place. And, if we run out of seats, we'll find you a seat. We'll make somebody uncomfortable enough, they'll leave. But we have people sit there for 4 hours. But then again, we have people sit there for 20 minutes and it just all works out. But it all came about, his rant went on and on about the city of St. Paul, how they've put an 11% liquor tax on them, how they put a $15 labor minimum wage on them when that was just the city. So he was having to pay a server $15 an hour, let's say, plus they get all their tips.
Right.
So the servers are like driving Mercedes, right? Because they're making bank, whereas he's losing his butt because he's having to pay that where he could go 2 miles away to a suburb who had a minimum wage of $8.35, and their servers still made
plus
good
tips.
money, right?
Exactly.
Plus the tips and everything. So they made things. So he was forced with that. He was forced with property taxes that were 10% higher. He was forced with all these different costs associated with trying to figure out how to survive. He was trying to figure out how to survive. And I think we're starting to see that. We're starting to, another YouTube video I just sent you that, Randy, is a guy that owns Heavy Maze Barbecue. And he was talking about the food cost of barbecue. And everybody thinks that, all these Texas barbecue places are just making bank, right? Well,
exactly.
He told the real story about how they're just dying to survive because the price of brisket's gotten so bad for prime briskets at $5.99 a pound. He's got this huge restaurant during the boom. They got this huge restaurant. Well, now all of a sudden, brisket used to be $20 a pound. Now his brisket is $34.99 a pound. And he said, people can't afford to eat here. And he heard that all the time. People saying, hey, you got great food, but I can't afford to eat there. Right. And so here he's got seats sitting empty because he can't afford. He's cooking less brisket because they're using much. How does he survive? And so he's done some things, about coming up with value propositions. And we've seen this. It really didn't hit home, but I've seen this with almost every Texas barbecue joint.
In
How
what
many
way?
have you seen have a brisket smash burger on their menu today?
Right.
Almost every single one of them. Right?
Exactly.
Almost every single one has a brisket smash burger. And the reason they have a brisket smash burger is because they've got all this brisket trim that you can only make so much sausage out of. And what do you do with it? So they can grind it up and make a kick-ass burger and sell that burger, for $8 or $10 and actually get people through the door.
Exactly.
And so it's all about survival. And I see it coming. I see it coming. We're starting to I get all the emails. We have different, I don't know, 7 shifts and whatever. People fill out applications. And I haven't seen applications roll in the last 2 years like they're rolling in right now.
You haven't
Because
seen
restaurants. I haven't seen
Okay.
applications fly through the door. Right? We're getting
You're
a lot
not
of
getting
applications.
applications. You are. Or
We
are
are
not?
now. We haven't
Okay.
in the past. We've never, and we really haven't had any need to. We really don't have to hire a lot, but we are
So
really getting a lot of applications rolling in the door because I think there's a lot of small restaurants that are going out. We're seeing a
Okay.
lot of, please help me, I want to survive posts on Facebook from a lot of restaurants because costs are high. People aren't eating out as much, right? Ever since COVID.
Right.
People aren't eating. They're learning during COVID, they learned how to cook at home, right? Because they had
Yep.
to. And so they're just not eating out. So there's less people eating out. And so our goal is how do we attract them? How do we attract them back in? And I think value is what we do. I think it's value.
Giving them their money's worth.
Well, yeah. So for instance, let's take Heavy Mace for instance, and let's do some simple math, right? So he's got
Okay.
brisket so let's say his brisket, and we're just going to keep this very simple. So let's say brisket
All right.
costs $15 a pound to produce, and he's selling it for $30. Okay, so every pound he sells, he makes $15. Now, of course, he has to pay for it,
Right.
but that's, you still got to pay all the labor and everything, but he makes $15. But he's not selling much brisket. But if he could lower the price of his brisket down to $25, right?
Uh-huh.
And sell, instead of 1 pound, he could sell 3 pounds. That means he'd make $30 instead of 15.
Right.
And I think that's where restaurants get it wrong. I think that's where people that are in, and I'm in the restaurant business, but I'm not a restaurateur. But I think so much focus goes on food cost and labor cost. You forget about sales takes care of everything, right? Sales takes care of everything. And I'm not saying go slash your prices. But you got to have that. But we're probably making more money than we ever have in the restaurant business. Why half the world is struggling? Because I haven't raised prices in 2 years.
Exactly.
I am a cheaper place. We are at Smokey D's. We're a cheaper place to eat we're damn near cheaper than McDonald's. But we're making, long time saying you can make it up in volume.
And the volume you're
Well,
doing, you're making it up in.
we make the volume. I mean, I looked yesterday. We did 930 covers yesterday, 930 tickets. Probably
Yeah.
meant we probably served 1,400 people
On a
on a
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
And sales were okay. Sales were okay. Our ticket, we weren't high ticket, but we sold a lot of it. So if I've got big overhead structure, I got to figure out, do you have good enough food to attract the people? And first, you got to have good food, right? You got to have above
That's
average
the key.
food. We've talked
That's the
about
key.
that. You got to have good food. You got to be good customer service. You can't have any of this BS treating customers like shit, and you can't have, crap running around and critters running around. I mean, you just got to run an overall tight ship. But if you
Right.
have the good food, if you could lower your price $2 and sell 3 times as much, most restaurateurs would say, no, my food cost would be out of line. Darren would say, I'm going to make it up in volume.
Because and you and I have had this conversation before. What keeps the door open? Percentages or dollars?
That's exactly right. We used to talk. Remember, we had to talk about the pork sandwich or the ribs.
Yeah.
Ribs are 40% food cost and pork sandwich is 25. right? What do you want to sell? When somebody walks in the door, what do you want to sell? I want to sell them a damn rack of ribs, because that rack of ribs, even though it's 40% food cost, I can make $10 on that rack of ribs where I can only make $3 on that pork sandwich. And they're going to order one or the other, right? Order one or the other. So now we've got a whole new, now that's our focus. That's our focus going into the holidays and into whatever our focus is. Value, our value proposition. We're not saying we're going to be super ass cheap, even though we are. We're going to say, how do we move tickets, right? Because if I can move tickets, I got a productive workforce, and especially if you can be productive, you don't have to, you don't have to add more staff, which adds more cost. Your building costs the same. Your air conditioner costs the same. Your plumbing costs the same, no matter whether you do one ticket or whether you do 100 tickets. So you got to figure out, how do you do more tickets? And that may be lowering your price, which may increase your food cost as a percentage. But if it brings more dollars through the door, that's okay.
Exactly.
And I think that's the lesson that sometimes people don't think about. And so
I would agree.
Yeah,
with
we
you.
had all kinds of crazy ideas. We're like, we don't offer a family pack, right? Now you can order a whole pit for $79.99, which is one of each of our meats and 2-3 pints of sides and a rack of ribs and some fries and garlic bread and whatever. Well, that's designed for 10 people, right? We're going to figure out, okay, how do we make a value pack that's designed for the family of 4? And we're going to make it cheaper than you can make it at the grocery store. So whether that's a rack of ribs and a pound of meat and 2 quarts of sides, or 2 pints of sides and something, maybe a dinner salad, which is big enough for 4 people anyway, because our portions are so damn big.
Right.
That we add value. And then you think about football, people going to the football game. What do I want? Well, they want a rack of ribs, they want some wings, and maybe they want some barbecue egg rolls, or maybe they want, let's design packages around that about stuff that's going to travel well, that they can, we're having football food today.
Hand food.
We're getting hand food. You're exactly right. So we're getting ready to head to Florida tomorrow because I need some thinking time, right?
Thinking time.
And it's hard I need some sunshine, but I'm probably not going to get much sunshine because I have a feeling, as many ideas as I have spinning in my head right now, I'm probably going to be inside most of the time on the computer working through making it better. Right?
There you go.
Trying to figure out, how do we make life better?
Exactly.
So value. That's the lesson. Value. I mean, another thing we're doing, and we're going to introduce this after the first year. So we're known for our comfort food specials, right? Matter of fact, I just got a phone call the other day. Somebody wants to feature our ham balls on a television show.
Really?
And I'm talking to the gal and I'm like, I said, ham balls don't get the respect they deserve. And she goes, oh my God, that's so funny. She goes, I can't believe you just said that. What? And she goes, I've never heard somebody so excited to talk about ham balls in my life. I'm like, ham balls, people come from all around the state into Smoky D's on Saturday to have our ham balls. There's people that drive from Ottumwa, an hour and a half away, every Saturday to get our ham balls. Now, isn't that kind of crazy? But we have a good ham ball. Yeah. Hell, a plate of ham balls. Well, you get 4 ham balls, mashed potatoes and gravy and corn. Hell, that's enough food for 3 people. Right? Because the ham balls aren't mini meatballs. They're huge. Right? But we sell that for $11.99, includes a drink. Well, now we're looking at, okay, not everybody wants to eat that because it's too big of a portion. You got grandma and grandpa, whatever. So now we're thinking about coming in with a ham ball bowl and a roast beef bowl and a turkey bowl and a mac and cheese bowl, that we're going to serve half the meat and half the side dish, the same scoop potatoes, and I'll charge $8.99 instead of $11.99. And I bet you I sell twice as many of them.
I would agree with you.
I'm not, and I'm going to actually improve my food cost probably as a bonus to that one, but I'm just giving people what they want. Back to the holiday meat conversation we have, I'm giving people what they want. They want a 3-pound package. They don't care about a fancy turkey. They just want good food, economical, and whatever. So if I can make it cheaper that you don't, like last night, went to the grocery store. Okay. We didn't have decision paralysis for the first time in years at our house.
Really?
I got done with my meeting at 4:00. I called up my lovely bride, just like I do every night when I'm on my way home from the restaurant. I said, I'm on my way to the grocery store. What sounds good for dinner? Instantly, she goes, boy, cavatelli sounds good. I'm like, wow. She's never asked for cavatelli in her life. But by God, I'll make cavatelli. And I think I knew what it was, but I'm like, it's Italian sausage and ground beef and some cavatelli noodles and some cheese, and we throw it all in, pasta sauce and whatever. So I go collect the ingredients, and we make our own homemade Italian sausage. So I had a pound of sausage at home. I said, take that out and get it thawing, and I'll pick up some burger and I'll pick up. So I bought all the ingredients. I walked without the Italian sausage. I bought all the ingredients and a couple little tins to bake them in because I wanted them to look kind of cool.
Right.
$36. And that's all I had. $36 for noodles, pasta sauce, hamburger, cheese. Not even all the cheese, just part of the cheese, because I had some at home, and the tin. $36. You know I can go anywhere and get cavatelli, a portion of cavatelli, and a little slice of bread. Got to have your carbs. $18. You think I can go anywhere in Des Moines, any Italian restaurant, and probably get cavatelli for $18?
I'm sure you can.
I probably could get a cavatelli dinner and probably a drink for $18.
Yeah,
and that was the two of us. And it was like, that's when it really hit me about the value of, in our marketing and everything that we do, how do we get that value out there? How do we get that we are a great value? How do we get the dessert and whatever? And so that's us pushing forward. You're going to hear the word value a lot in Smoky East.
And that separates you away from the rest.
I think so. I know so. We're still figuring out how to get the best damn food. I mean, hell, Randy, we just locked into a contract on ribs. We moved. We were at a 3.25 pound rib. We're forced to go down to a 3-pound rib, right? Which I'm like, I don't want to serve that smaller rib. But it just so happened it wasn't cut very wide, so it really was a nice rib, a lot of nice thick meat. It just wasn't as wide a rib, but it was nice and juicy when you bought into it, and I was very happy with it. And it came time to sign my contract for the next year, and I'm like, I need the 3.5. And they're like, well, you've been happy with the 3. And I'm like, no, because what's going to happen is I'm going to buy the 3, you're going to cut it wider, and then I'm going to have crap. So I want the 3.5 pound rib. And by God, they found a way to cut me a contract on 3.5 pound rib. And so,
good for you.
Yeah, and then they come back and said, hey, I said, I want them right now. I know my contract doesn't start till January 1st. I need them right now. And they're like, no, we can't do that because we're building inventory for you, because that's how ribs work. They they cut all the ribs. If I sign a contract, they're going to cut all my ribs and throw it in the freezer. And so they said, but we do have some that are about 350 days old sitting in the freezer. Would you be interested in those? $2.49 a pound. And I said, well, I don't know. And my meat guy over at PFG goes, Dan, he goes, let's try and get them for $1.99. I said, okay, let's do it. Dan says, hey, can we get those for $1.99? And the guy says, yep, we'll do it. I'm like, Dan's like, son of a bitch, we should have got $1.59 out of them.
Yeah, exactly.
But now we're $1.99. So my rack of rib cost went from a 3 pound at $3, whatever. I went from $9 down to $7.
Exactly.
To a rack of ribs. Now I'm not going to lower the price on rack of ribs because I'm cheaper than shit anyway, but I am not going to raise the price on something else. And that's how hopefully we're going to win at the end.
You got to keep fighting the battle.
Keep fighting the battle. Anything else going on down on Twyford Road? that we
Not
need
too
to
much.
talk about? I've done a lot.
got a
I've
lot
done
of-
a lot of the talking today, Randy.
Well, we've kind of hung the food truck up for the season. Had a lot of people asking if there's a nice day come up, we might run her out, now and then. But doubt it, with cold weather, doesn't work out too good. So, but got quite a few caterings going on. So a lot of Christmas parties and stuff like that. So, and
That's good.
I think, like you're saying, it's when we do caterings, we give the people what they want. Some of the caterings, they're wanting some things a little different, and we're pretty flexible of giving them what they want. So kind of giving them, as you say, the value, what they're asking for. So I think it's paying off for us, big dividends. So
Yeah, that's good. Anytime that catering, keep an eye on Thursday, buddy, because we're looking at the weather. We're on our way to Florida tomorrow, and by God, we're going to have a cold streak. Thursday, it's supposed to be a high of 70. And I can't wait to get down there in my shorts, and all these other guys are going to be in parkas, right? 70. And then we looked at the weather for here, 57 degrees in Iowa on Thursday.
There you go.
So come Friday, you probably need to have a food truck day, because I'm guaranteeing she's going to be
we might have a food truck day on Friday.
Illinois.
Exactly.
Might have to have a food truck
Exactly.
if you don't have too many caterings. And if you do have the caterings, screw that food truck. That's guaranteed money.
That's exactly right. That's kind of the problem we got. We've got some day. I was looking at the weather, and the weather's pretty decent, but the days that the guys can be off are the days we've got catering. So kind of screw the food truck. Caterings are good, the sure thing. So
sure thing. Nothing like it. Nothing like a sure thing. Just like going to the bar at night really late. Nothing like a sure thing.
Yeah, exactly. So
okay. I think that's enough. We got 52 minutes of pure content here.
Yep. Good content. So
okay. I look forward to next week. I'll probably have a little different backdrop behind me.
Okay.
But,
well, I'll probably have the same. So
you'll probably have the same. So in the meantime, we know you found a podcast. So just tell one more person. That's your goal as a listener.
Yeah. If you like,
tell one more person.
If you like what you heard or seen, tell a friend. If you don't tell them.
Or just tell us.
Exactly. So.
Hey guys, Emma here. Had to come out of retirement for this one, but for some reason, Darren and Randy cannot remember to say, follow us on social media. We are at Cue the Mic Pod on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, whatever you call it. We are also on YouTube. If you haven't watched our videos already, you can find us over there. We are at Cue the Mic Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like our videos and leave comments. I love to read those. And just like the guy said, also be sure to tell your friends, because we love listeners.
We'll see y'all again. Take care now.
We'll talk to you later. See you later.